I'm Brandon Amoroso, and this is the D2Z podcast, building and growing your business from a Gen Z perspective. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to D2Z, a podcast about using the Gen Z mindset to grow your business. I'm Gen Z entrepreneur Brandon Amoroso, founder and CEO of retention as a service agency, Electric Marketing. And today I'm joined by Emilio Di Marco, CEO and founder of Almond. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Excited to have you here.
Thanks, Brandon, for inviting me.
So before we dive into some of these topics, can you give everybody just a quick background on yourself?
Sure. Yeah. So I am from Argentina. I live in Miami right now since some months ago, launching Almond, that is like a streamlined version of Klaviyo for small e-com brands, basically marketing automation through multiple channels. My background, I worked in different companies. Me and my co-founders were the growth marketing team of WeWork for LATAM. My CMO is a former e-com manager of Adidas also, and I was brand manager of Corona and Stella Artois, and also had like some different failed businesses before. And I'm a wine lover. I launched a wine brand last year, a very small, 2,500 bottles. And yeah, like that's a long story short of my background.
Awesome. Well, what is Almond all about? But can you expand a little bit on how it is a streamlined version of Klaviyo and why you think that is like a pain point in the marketplace right now for brands?
Yeah, so I think it's a good way to tell it as how we started as a consumer, right? I remember that we started at the beginning of this year. I received a communication offering 25% discount in a t-shirt that I bought 10 days before, and I paid full price from the same brand. And I thought, hey man, this cannot happen. Like there are so amazing tools like Klaviyo, for example, there that brands can leverage all the data they have in order to personalize communications. But when I started digging and talking with small brand owners, I realized that Klaviyo is great. It's a great tool, but sometimes it's a little bit complex for small brands, and maybe small brands cannot afford like good agency like Electric, for example, or something, or different agencies. And we realized, hey, maybe there is a huge opportunity to help those brands that are probably less than 2 million in annual revenue with small teams, or probably solo founder there, to help them like really leverage a few amount of data they have to be able to have the basic foundations for automations, and be able to personalize communication through campaigns. And basically, I think that's like the main value proposition, basically with two things: great deliverability, three things: basic strategy, and also beautiful design tools. Like we give very, very easy to use and easy to design emails inside Almond, including discounts, timers, different cool things with products. So basically, our own objective is, hey, you can do amazing things in a simple way, and that's like what Almond does and is doing with more than 450 brands right now.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how that could be really valuable for a lot of brands, especially as they're just getting started or don't have the resources to work with like an agency, like you mentioned. And because for me, Klaviyo is sort of second nature at this point. But if I think back to when I first logged into a Klaviyo account 2.5 years ago, there's a lot going on, and you really need to be fully invested in it to be able to understand how it works and what you should be doing with the tool, how to leverage it with all the different solutions. Like it's not 3 clicks and you're on your way with all the flows and communications that a growing brand would need to have. And just like you mentioned Canva as like the Canva of Photoshop, you even see it with like Figma and Adobe, and Figma just getting acquired by Adobe, that you're taking some of the enterprise style like functionality and almost dumbing it down a little bit, for lack of a better term to use. And then that can almost serve as like a funnel, like for those brands. Like once you graduate from this, you might move on to this, and vice versa.
Yes. You said it better than me, Brandon. It's exactly that. It's the different use case, like, and also there is like an statistical in terms of data thing about it, that it's not just easy to use or easy to design. Like if you have, there is no possible there is no hyper personalization possible if you don't have enough data, because if you have very few data sources or a very few database customer database, then it doesn't make sense to segment to a database of 10 people, so it's kind
Right.
of that.
Yeah, I mean, my newsletter last weekend was all about how you're like buying a Ferrari stick shift car, but you don't know how to drive stick shift, and you are used to driving Priuses, not Ferraris, and basically Klaviyo is like a Ferrari, and so many
100%.
brands start using it, but then I go into the accounts and I don't see them leveraging the value that it actually provides. And you're right. I mean, segmentation is only effective and testing is only effective if you have enough people to test it with, so that it's like actually statistically significant. If you have a group of 50 customers that you're trying to segment, I mean, you just can't, it's pointless. So I think this makes a lot of sense in terms of the market fit. What are some of the areas that you're focused on, and that have come out of your first, well, you've been around for this, you started earlier this year, correct?
Yep.
So January. In the past like 10, 11 months, what are some of the things that consumers have come to you with in terms of like new ideas for the products or things that they're struggling with that you see as an area of opportunity for you guys moving into next year?
Yeah, so I think that there are two main concerns about small brands. One is deliverability. They do not have like any idea of how to improve it. It doesn't matter the tool that they are using, because they don't have that educational side of building an email, of building an SMS, for example. I'm particularly talking about email now, but let's say that they build emails full of image, for example, with no text. And you say, yeah, that's basics. But man, like brands of wine, 2 million in our revenue, still doing that. And it's crazy. So mainly that's a big concern about why open rates are so small. And it's the discussion starts much before talking about A/B testing. It's just, hey, let's see the basics. Okay, you don't have it. So there's a huge opportunity there in an educational way, and how a product can deliver that education. There's a huge opportunity there, and also in design, but design with best practices, right? Like you can design beautiful emails, but if you do emails all images, as I said, nobody's going to see it, or much less people, because the open rate will be low, because the deliverability will be low. So design, like brands wants beautiful designs, but do not know how to put design and best practices together into an email, for example. So those sides are very important. We started with email and SMS, now launching campaigns in a couple of weeks. But for example, what we are seeing is that we have a ton of non-US customers that are asking us for WhatsApp. So that's something that we are analyzing as part of the roadmap for next year. But basically, for us, it's not that the channel doesn't matter, but for us, what matters is to be relevant and to be there on time with with the exact message. That sounds very cliche, but it's real. Like, and combining different channels. I think that I heard Harley Finkelstein say that some time ago. Like, omnichannel is part of the normal right now. If you are not omnichannel, like, you're wasting resources. So we are figuring how to build this product with good educational content, with good best practices to give like the best possible experience across different channels, email and SMS first, and then what we're gonna figure out, like WhatsApp, for example.
Yeah, I think education and enablement of the customers has to be super important, because even if they download the product, it doesn't mean it's gonna turn itself on and do all the things that you need them to do in order to prove out that there's an actual ROI of the solution.
Yes, yes, I agree. That's one of the most important thing, especially for non-technical people,
Hmm.
and or small teams, right? Like that educational piece is key. Is I think it's the start of everything. If you can have a Ferrari, but if you don't know how to drive it, you're done.
um, so in terms of the like growth of your business, sort of jumping over to the software side of things, what are some of the things that you're doing to like retain your existing customers that are using the platform? Because obviously, just like with a direct to consumer brand, you want to minimize churn and retain your customers and increase LTV. I mean, there's like a lot of similarities actually between D2C brands and software companies, I feel like. But what are some of the things you're doing to retain them? And then where are you finding most of your growth coming from? Are you doing like direct outreach? Are you starting to see some referral flow come through? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, the great questions. I'm gonna start with the first one. Um, so, in terms of growth, how do I start? I remember the last question, so I will start with the last question, and we can go back to the rest.
Sounds
No,
good.
so yeah, we are receiving customers. The other one was retention.
Hmm.
So we are bringing customers through different sources. Like 22% are what we call organic, mainly. We include there some direct referrals from our own customers and people who
Hmm.
find us directly without ads in the Shopify App Store, for example. Then we have a very, very small referral program where we give monthly credits for our brands. That's another big source of lead generation. And then we started with small tests, doing some ads basically on Google and in the Shopify ecosystem too. But most of them are coming from Google.
Hmm.
And that's basically how we are acquiring customers right now. We don't have a partner program yet. We started to draft it last month, so we are working on with some tests with freelancers mainly, or very, very small boutique agency that works with small brands. Regarding to retention, one of the, I think, and it's not just us, we're doing, like when we sit with my co-founder and say, hey, how we are going to retain our customers, it's like it all starts giving reasons to believe, right? Giving reasons to believe that the product is worthy to look for, that a product is worthy to give an opportunity for, that is worthy to stay, right? And that is like those reasons to believe should be not only the first thing they see about Aument, but also all the customer journey, even after becoming paying customers, but also by upgrading or staying just during the time they are with us. So those reasons to believe for us should be focused on the problems they have and how Aument solves those problems, right? So we don't want to get in love of our product. It's difficult because you know that as a founder, you love what you're doing. You are 100% focused on that, on building, and probably sometimes we lose focus on solving the problem and trying to just build something because it's cool. So we focus on understanding each of the points of the pain points of those customers we have. Among this particular target that I mentioned before, those are very clear. Strategy problems mainly caused because of lack of education, and then
Hmm.
design with best practices. So we are trying to give reasons to believe across all the customer journey, and that's how they stay. Because when they get into Aument, they start using automations, they start sending campaigns, and we can show them, hey, if you do this, you can have much better open rate, or if you do this, you will see this in a better conversion rate at the end of the funnel. And it's like, okay, yeah, I will stay. So we analyze retention cohorts weekly and monthly, and we deep dive on each of those cohorts to understand why they are churning, what are the reasons they are staying. With those who leave, we try to understand very deeply those reasons why they leave. We try to find their address and go there and ask them, hey, why you left us? And the same with the ones that are staying. So based on all that feedback, we focused each sprint we have on delivering a better solution to all those problems that we couldn't deliver before, or improve the ones that are already working well.
How much of that is automated, like in the platform in terms of recommendations, versus you having like a customer success team who is there working with them and providing more like manual recommendations, strategic best practices?
Great question. I like to say like 60-40, 60 the product, 40 the customer success team. Basically, already we have alerts. For example, when you are creating an email, you will see alerts that will show you, hey, you have these spammy words that probably will impact your deliverability. Please take it out. So we have very small tools that to help before sending those emails inside Aument. The same with a library of copies for SMS, a library of templates, a huge library of templates for email. And one other cool thing that we are launching now is like an inspirational place where we show to our customers, like if you are a sportswear brand, we show you like huge, beautiful emails from big brands all across the world to inspire you and to start building templates based on the best practices of the best brands. But yeah, like we have very specific and small tools built in the product. 60%, I think, of the process would be inside the product, and the rest, it's like when we realize that people is sending things that are not converting well or are not having good open rates, we receive those alerts and we try to analyze them and try to give that feedback to them and help them to improve.
Got it. And most of you'd say, retention comes from the fact that you're able to pretty easily prove out an ROI, and with the customer success team, like most of the brands that you're working with see value. Has there been a customer that's churned that has given you insight into how you could maybe improve the product or improve the customer experience?
Yes, a lot of feedback, mainly for the early days.
Okay.
I think more sophisticated, as more sophisticated the customer is, the more is the need to, like they say, bring me more data in. Like one of the key things of Klaviyo, I think, is the ability to bring data in, from different hundreds of integrations. I think that's one of the biggest pain points we have right now. We don't see the same feedback with small brands. The main reason why we are trying to give this educational content and best practices within the product is because of the feedback that we received in the beginning from those small brands who said to us, hey, like, I need more help. I need that from the product. I want you to have that in the product. And that's one of the key things we learn about, like how helping these small brands. And that's what we are working on right now.
How do you balance your own internal road mapping and objectives with prioritizing feedback from customers in terms of getting it into the development roadmap?
Oh, that's one of the hardest things of building products. Like you want to build everything. You receive a specific feedback from a great customer and say, let's go, let's build it, let's go and let's build it. And it's like, no, man. Like, luckily we have a CPO and co-founder in my team that has an amazing experience, and it's like, no, man, let's analyze it. So he works with a framework where we analyze every feedback we have. We implement different, what we call app votes, where we say, hey, these are the amount of customers that gave us this feedback. This is the weight of each customer based on our target customers we're trying to hit. And based on that framework and business objectives, product objectives, we define like different, like a score. And based on that score, we prioritize. Even doing that is very hard. Like, you end the score and you say, are you sure you want to do this first? And it's like, well, yeah, it's a framework we are doing. And I think that is helping us a lot to prioritize.
Got it. Yeah, I think it's like, how do you not go around like chasing the newest feature or functionality? And like, this is something that we're dealing with the drinks app, because there's so many like requests and inquiries around supporting different beverage categories or supporting this like unique use case and feature. And we would need like 100 developers to be able to chase down everything that is coming in on a daily basis. So that's
Yeah, and there's something nice that you just said is customers always want more, you know,
yes.
And not being super clear about the target you're trying to hit, it's really hard, because if you don't be super specific, as more specific, the easier is to prioritize. It's, you will receive so much requests that probably are not the focus or the value proposition we are trying to give, that if you don't focus and you stay focused on that path, you will be building something that like a Frankenstein. You like every week you have those challenges, you know?
Yeah. What how'd you go about deciding the foundation that you were going to build the product on? Because I hear a lot from other like Shopify app founders who started like 3 or 4 years ago, or maybe even longer. And they talk about how about a year and a half, maybe two into the product, they kind of had to scrap everything and rebuild it on a different framework because they had so much technical debt. Is that something that you are accounting for like from day one, or is just sort of the reality of building a software product sort of scrappily is that you're going to have to address it at some point?
That's a great question, and I think it's a problem that hits every founder building product. I think the easiest, the best way to think about it is the only thing we have to focus is to solve a problem, right? And to build a solution to solve the problem. If we do that, even if it's very, very small, if we need to scale it after that, okay, problem of the future, you know, that's my way of thinking. Because if you focus too much on scale before needing to scale, probably you are building something that you don't need yet. And you're wasting resources. You're wasting resources in development. You're wasting resources in thinking about how to scale before needing to. So I think, yeah, you probably will need to rebuild your infrastructure, redo a lot of things to be able to scale. But that's a happy problem. Like, yes, that's a happy problem.
Get the customers first. Deal with that problem when it comes. That makes sense.
Exactly.
Now, obviously, the team is very important in any startup. So what are some of how did you come about your founding team? And then as you've been making some of these first strategic hires, what are you looking for? What's gone well for you in terms of hires? What hasn't gone well? How are you fostering any sort of culture in a remote work environment, which is something that we didn't have to deal with as much, but we're starting to have to deal with now as we're spread across the whole US. And as we bring on new team members, it's like, you don't really meet anybody in person. So I guess that's a two-part question. One being, what's it like hiring that initial team? What are some of the things that you're looking for? And then being a remote first company, what are you doing to foster some sort of a sense of community?
Both great questions and big challenges. I think that hiring is the key to success in every team, right? Doing it well probably will get you to an IPO, and doing it bad will get you to die 1 month after trying to start. So it's the key. I think that the founders team is the most important thing ever, because if the funding team is good, ambitious, and with good background, with good experience, and really wants to do something big, it's even bigger than the problem that you're trying to solve. Because if you build a shitty solution, but the team is very good, you will figure out how to do something better the next time, you know? So I think that's the building the funding team that you will be with you. It's like a family. Like, you will be all day together. Like, if you don't build that founding team very well, if you're building product, for me, it's key to have a technical founder. Without a technical founder, it's complicated. And there, in terms of hiring, I think one of the key, one of the worst things that founders, and I include myself there, is that when we raise fund, even this happens mostly, I think, that with VC-backed startups. That is, you raise a round, you want to tell everyone that you raised a round, like it's like if you did something successful, and it's not. It's not even a milestone for me. It's just, okay, someone is betting on you. That's all. Okay. And you as a founder start running to spend the money and hire, and you feel that with that you're going to build the product, and you want to tell investors, we hired 5 people this week, we are going to hire 10 people next week. And that's what happens with all the startups that raise money. Yeah. And the problem with that is that 2 months later you will be with your co-founder and say, hey, I think that we overhired. And that is much difficult to solve after than before. So I think that founders need to be really, really focused on understanding what are the less people needed to build what you need to build in the short term. Don't think about scale. Don't think about all your roadmap. The specific thing you want to do to solve the problem that you want to do. Okay, what's the minimum and best, like say, plug and play team to do it? You cannot. So overhiring is a problem, and also not hiring plug and play people to do what you need to do that already did something exactly or similar in the past, because you cannot afford like a huge learning curve when you're building a startup. So those, I think, that are 2 mistakes that I did myself in different businesses. And then let's see what went good. When you hire plug and play people to do it, you will see results immediately. So it's worth it to pay what you need to pay for those people. It's worth it to give equity to those people. And also, I think those are the people who will bring you, the company, to the next stage. Like, focus on building that team, not the rest will come. So that in relationship to hiring, what goes when good or not. And then remote, so I love like a hybrid model. I think like remote is very nice to stay focused, to have more time for yourself, to even grow your team wherever you are. It doesn't matter. But at the same time, you lose that physical relationship that you generate with people that is totally different, that you cannot build those kind of relationships through Zoom, for example. There's no way. We have a 100% remote team. Most of our team our engineering team is in Argentina. We have people in Mexico and Colombia. I am the only one in the US yet. So the Argentinian team meets one time every 2 weeks in an office that we rent, like in a co-working. And then we have like these monthly dinners with all the team. But what happens, that the worst side of that is that we have very few people in Colombia, very few people in Mexico, for example, and those that people cannot do and anything, because probably they live in different cities, you know. Right. So it's super challenging. I think the hybrid is the best. At the same, it's hard to implement, but I think that is the best. And regarding the team, it allowed us to build something really fast, quick, with the people that we consider that were the ones to do it. It doesn't matter where they are.
Yeah, I think for me, the ability to like creatively problem solve and brainstorm around problems, or like roadmap out big picture ideas, and that's very difficult to do on Zoom. There's so many distractions. It's not the same. You can't like whiteboard something out. So I think for like having the founding team, they're giving them the ability to meet together to lay out that strategic direction. And then as you scale, like you have some more like plug and play openings, like you need to plug a developer in here to take care of X, Y, and Z. It's like, okay, well, you're not going to be missing out on as much if you're not able to get that person like in the office collaborating with you on a daily basis. But I think you need to have a mix, and having some component of collaboration in person is super important.
Yes, and what you just mentioned about brainstorming and figuring out ideas, I mean, there are cool tools, but nothing replaces the physical meeting. So yeah, I agree. I think that for software companies and service companies too, it's good to have a hybrid model right now.
Yeah. I think remote work's really good for just executing on tasks. Like I can focus, just laser in on, hone in on whatever I need to get done. But in terms of collaboration, it's not the same. Plus, for me, working at home alone, I like to sometimes like go to a coffee shop or something, because then you get like the energy and the people around you and get the caffeine, and just feels more productive.
Yes, and it's easier. It's challenging to build a strong culture if you are fully remote. Is what you said. For execution is great, but to build culture, it's hard.
Yeah, I think getting buy-in from the team is super important. And as a software company, especially at your stage, equity is a big component of that. Like I'd frankly rather hire somebody for a little bit less money, but give them more equity, because then they're going to be more bought in. If they're willing to forego some compensation for equity in this, they obviously believe in the product. Because at this stage, you can't be bringing on like guns for hire, basically, where they're just here to execute and they don't really give a shit about how the company pans out. So I think that's something that software companies have a better leverage on than like a D2C brand or an agency, where the equity isn't going to turn into $1 billion IPO or whatever the end goal is for a software product. But one last question I had before we wrap things up here, as you've started a couple businesses before and you're currently going through Almond right now, is there any sort of advice that you would give to a business owner that's just starting out? Any techniques that they should be thinking about that could help them be successful on their own entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I think that if you're a first-time entrepreneur, even if you're building a D2C brand or a software company or an agency, it's pretty the same. I think probably you feel this in a similar way to me, is that the only way to success is to failure before. I think that the most times you fail, you are having more chances to succeed in the future. You know, it's like every failure is a learning. And for me, is being key to try things fast, cheap, and test if it works, or if it worked or not. And if it worked, keep building on that direction. But do not wait to try to do everything perfect before starting. And after that, but it's part of the same way of thinking, is focus on the problem. Even if you're building an agency, a DTC, or a SaaS, focus on the problem, not in the solution, and build everything you can the most cheap possible. Because if you do that, you will be able to build even better things in the future. If you don't get that first stage of willingness to pay from the customers, even if you're building something shitty, that's the first step. Build something shitty, but if it solves the problem, it doesn't matter. If you look in Google, for example, if you look the first site of Airbnb, man, like you will say, this was Airbnb in 2008. Like I cannot believe it. Bugs everywhere, no images in the product, no map, no nothing. And they started that in that way, and they sold it in that way. And that's the way to think to start a startup. People who focuses on the solution try to see competition or players that are trying to solve the problem that you're trying to solve. And of course, if you compare against Nike, you will say it's impossible to build a sportwear brand. Like, how do I do this? Look at Nike. What is it? They have a ton of stores everywhere. They have a beautiful site. They have amazing emails. Like, how can I start? Don't focus on that. Don't worry about that. That's their problem, not yours. So basically that I think that the focus is focus on the problem, build the cheapest way you can, and fail rapidly.
I mean, you see these issues with D2C brands and just companies in general, the desire for perfection and inability to like get anything out the door. And then you can't test, you can't iterate because you're so solely focused on something. And then to your other comment about Nike, I was just having a conversation on the podcast before this actually about how as like a growing startup, so I think it's a terrible idea to look at too closely the biggest players in your space, because then you'll start to look at things that they're doing that are more like final tweaks and optimizations, like let's say free 2-day shipping or something. It's a growing startup. You're not going to compete with Nike on their logistic like capabilities or ability to get into home within a day or two. These are things that they dominate because of their scale. And if you're trying to compete with them on scale, you're going to lose, versus you need to be focused on what makes your product unique issue that you're addressing for the customer. And then these last things that companies like them can take advantage of, those will maybe come later on. But if that's your selling point and how you're trying to get consumers to purchase from you, you've already lost.
Yeah, and one point about that is I saw beautiful brands fail because of trying to build everything before launching, and they realized that they built beautiful designs, beautiful branding, beautiful, even their product is very good.
Yeah.
But when they launch their store, it's like, okay, how do we sell this? And I don't know, like, I don't know how to acquire customers. If I acquire, I don't know how to retain them. Okay, focus on those simple things that we're gonna get you the first sales, and then you can start building the rest. But yeah, it's very interesting.
If you build it in a vacuum in your own sort of think tank, and then you just release it and you spend a bunch of time and money on it, and it doesn't land well with the consumers, now you don't have enough resources or money to reiterate, and you're left with something that looks really great but didn't resonate with your target audience. So you need 100%. To be able to be comfortable with, and I see this all the time, just be comfortable with getting it out there and being okay with it not being perfect, which is hard.
It's hard when you feel the customer, when you feel the pain, when you receive the feedback, and you cannot deliver on time. But that's where creativity comes. Right? That's where the good founders start, when you have so much creativity to solve things, even if it's not the best way. That's the best way to start.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Before we hop off, can you let everybody know where they can find you online if they want to get in contact?
Yeah, my LinkedIn's the first place is the best place to find me. It's Emilio Di Marco. I think that's the best way. Our website too, augment.io. And well, any questions, anything I can help with, let me know.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for joining us. Thank you everybody for listening. As always, you can find me at brandonamoroso.com or electricmarketing.com, and we'll see you next time.